Hello and welcome to day 3 of our first virtual annual meeting. Today is going to be focused on telling you about current ISIA activities and looking for your input onto what our next areas of focus should be. First today, Jenny Murray from Life Science Production is going to provide you a comparison between FBS, human serum, and human platelet lysate. These human products have been touched on at various points in the last 2 days, and this is intended to give you some talking points going forward. Jenny is someone who needs no introduction to most of you, and so here's Jenny.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name's Jenny Murray. I'm Managing Director of Life Science Group, and I've been asked by the ISIA to give a very short presentation on fetal bovine serum, human serum, or platelet lysate. A comparison just so that we can understand some of the regulatory complexities and manufacturing complexities between these products. So why are we making this comparison? We're making this comparison because of the effects that the 3Rs regulations are having. The 3Rs have been with us for quite a long time, 1940s, 1950s, but they're growing in popularity and growing in impact. And now they are, well, they're certainly embedded in some of the legislation in various governments around the world. But in some countries, grant funding is now dependent upon using animal-free technology. So not all grant funding, but a lot of grant funding requires you to actually stipulate that you will be using animal-free methodology. So this is the 3Rs: replacement, reduction, and refinement of the use of animal-derived materials. Initially, it was this regulation was put in place because of animals being used in vivo in either research or cosmetic testing or whatever other technologies that live animals were being used for. However, in the last certainly 10 years, it's had a much broader scope, and people are looking at animal-derived materials that they're using in general research terms. And unfortunately, fetal bovine serum is being caught up in this whole process. So there has been an evolution of the interpretation of the 3R principles. Some people take it that this means absolutely no animal-derived materials at all. And changes in society to a certain extent are driving some of this, with veganism and vegetarianism becoming more popular. And there has been a move, certainly within certain associations that we've been working with, to encourage people to move from fetal bovine-based materials to human-based materials, certainly for stem cell and cell therapy work, but also in some regulatory frameworks that they are asking people to move away from fetal bovine serum. And whilst we support this, and it's perfectly laudable, and in fact, almost necessary, because we all know that fetal bovine serum has a limited supply, and the requirement for fetal bovine serum grows year on year, but the availability of raw material actually decreases year on year, and there do need to be alternatives. But I think a lot of people who make this move to human-derived material are not really aware of some of the risks. So the raw material source, fetal bovine serum, as you know, comes from fetal blood. It's an abattoir collected product, which is a byproduct of the meat industry, slaughterhouse industry. Human serum tends to be either from EU or USA sourced, not entirely. There are other sources of material, such as South Africa, but it's usually expired blood for transfusion or from paid donors, which carries its own issues. Human platelet lysate is usually derived from platelets, which come from the US or the EU. I've not come across any platelets from other geographies, but I'm sure they exist. So the availability, FBS, as I said, is variable supply, depending on climatic and seasonal variations. But equally, we do know that in countries like South America, or zones like South America and countries like Brazil, the availability of serum is reducing year on year. Human serum is a difficult one, is a limited supply, especially as it's mainly human AB serum that is used. And there is a limited number of donors, and male donors are preferred over female donors. And so it's it can be a limited supply. Quite often the serum is actually serum is collected as plasma initially, and then it's converted back to serum, which is a manufacturing process which has, again, its own issues. And it's an expensive product. Human platelet lysate, usually quite good availability from blood transfusion centers, as they tend to have expired units coming up, not necessarily in large volumes, but they do tend to have expired units. Lot-to-lot size. So fetal bovine serum is typically produced in up to 2,000 litres at a time. There will be batch-to-batch variability, but because of the lot size, it tends to be managed. I mean, typically a lot size of 1,000 litres or 2,000 litres will contain blood collected from many individual animals. Human serum tends to be manufactured in smaller lots, so 5 to 50 litres is typical, although larger lots are available from some manufacturers. There tends to be more lot-to-lot variability because of the smaller number of individual donor units that go into any given lot. Human platelet lysate, there is less variability due to the very nature of the product. So the ethics, haha. FBS collection is a very highly regulated collection. It's a byproduct of the slaughterhouse industry, and welfare, as we all know, in the slaughterhouse industry is quite high globally. I personally feel that we have a moral obligation in society, if we are going to slaughter animals for food, to use to the best of our ability every material from the animal that is possible to use. Country of blood collection can be verified by traceability certification. So that's the veterinary health certificates. We all know them and use them, and that we all have our ISIA traceability that relies on this. Human serum, on the other hand, is less regulated. It's usually collected from donors by consent. An informed consent form is usually completed out to ensure that that material can be used for other applications other than blood donations. But in some countries, this is less strictly regulated, shall we say. There are certain countries where prison populations, for instance, are used for blood donations. So there is some concern over that. Platelets for infusion are obtained by donor consent. So platelets are collected with donor consent, and again, the same donor consent that is used for human serum, so that the informed consent to allow use of the platelets for other applications is given at the time of collection. Import-export regulations. Well, as we know, FBS has its own challenges for importing and exporting, but on the whole, it's achieved by the use of veterinary health certificates. It's highly regulated because it's considered, animal-derived materials are considered to bear a risk for the animal food chain in each of the countries of import. However, for human serum, there is less interest. Ironically, you can pretty much move human serum anywhere you like without any form of certification. And the same applies for human platelet lysate. There is very little regulation on where you can move this product. Virus testing. So we all know about viral testing of fetal bovine serum. We have a range of viruses that are dictated by 9 CFR. Additional testing is available, and depending on the end use of the material and the customer. And we also know that gamma radiation is available to try and mitigate the risk of viral load in serum. Human serum is tested for viruses of concern, and these differ between geographies. Broadly speaking, Europe and the US are more or less in line. Other countries may not have that same level of viral testing required. And it's not, for further manufacturing, there is no there is no requirement to do further testing, although customers will insist that certain tests are carried out, and many companies actually offer additional viral testing of their batches of serum. The product may be supplied heat inactivated and gamma radiated, and usually gamma radiation is important for GMP manufacturing use for cell and gene therapy. Human platelet lysate is similar to human serum in as much that those tests on the raw material and the processed material are available. So C of A reporting, we're all very used to the reporting on a C of A. As we know, the industry association is attempting to standardize the information shown on a certificate of analysis to enable customers to have a clear idea of comparing material and understanding the results shown on a certificate of analysis. With human serum, it tends to be a bit different. There is a lot of variability between companies in the information that's provided. There is no real standardization for viral testing other than those that are stipulated in the country of collection. Same with human platelet lysate, they tend to follow each other on this. So what are the risks? So there's some pressure globally, particularly in Europe, I have to say, to move away from FBS based on the arguments of the 3 Rs. However, FBS does not provide some of the additional risks that human serum and human platelets can provide. We can recognize that obviously FBS is not a xeno-free environment for human cells, but it does provide a medium that is free of typically human viruses. The problem with human serum is that whilst it does provide a xeno-free environment for your cells, it carries the risk of undetected human viruses within a batch, which could potentially replicate and cause harm to a patient. It has to be said, there's been no cases of this reported, and gamma radiation will mitigate some of that risk, but there is always that possibility. The same applies to human platelet lysate. So where are we? We have limited supplies of fetal bovine serum globally, which reduce year on year, and that there will be a requirement for other materials to come in and take that place. And all of these products therefore have a role to play, and it's up to the individual user as to which way they go, and some of the regulators who determine which way to go. But one of the things I think we do need to do is to increase awareness and to educate regulators on the risks inherent in all the different types of material. FBS is highly regulated and other material are not. I've had conversations with regulatory teams at various manufacturing companies who want to see the import certification for human serum from various countries, and you have to explain that there is no such certification exists. And I wonder if we as an association shouldn't be working to assist on this further regulation, and maybe look at bringing human serum and human derived material into our traceability program, because I do think it's going to be increasingly important in the future. And there are risks in using human derived material. We all recognize that, and I think it is a case of making sure that all those risks are considered before a customer makes a decision as to what product they would wish to use.